Welcome back. I hope you listen to those sponsors and you're gonna act on that. If you need any help, use those guys. If you need a trusted radio, if you need a trusted professional, you're making an important decision, then you need to listen to our show on Saturday nights at 10 o'clock, the Trusted Radio Network.
But what you can also do as well, and I don't mean to cut you off, Attorney Stephen, but I really did want to mention, too, that Watch Talk Radio is up and live. So if you guys are out there and about and you want to watch live on Fridays, you guys tune right in around 1:30. So you'll be able to watch our podcast.
So we're here with Deborah Schreiner and Jim Leahy on AM 560. The answer. We're going to do our next segment.
It's the blog segment. The blog. The blog.
It's nostalgic, Jim. And this is what's
all that's right in the world.
It is all what's right in the world. So here's some nostalgia, because I've talked about this on the show before, but I keep getting these calls and people talking about it's generally people who have means, okay, and that means they're making a pretty good living. I had a guy making $200,000 and some $1,000 a year, and he's calling me about his home. Right, he's got this investment property, and it's underwater, and how am I going to get rid of it? He's been trying to get rid of it forever and can't seem to sell it. Nothing's happening. And so he's talking about a strategic default. And so he calls me, well, can you help me do this? Can you help me do a short sale or something on the property? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that right here because this is a common question. And whether you're going to do a strategic default or you're defaulting anyway because you have to. Usually that means you don't have the money to pay them. The same rules apply to you. Here in Illinois, we have what they call a recourse state, and what that means is that the mortgage company, if you fail to pay, can come after you for a deficiency, and a deficiency is the difference between what you owe the mortgage company and what it's sold for at auction. So if once I go to foreclosure, they hold an auction, and let's say they get $150,000 for that property at the auction, but I owe them $200,000. Well, that $50,000 difference, that's a deficiency, and that's what the mortgage company can come after me for. And the reason, again, why people get so confused about this is because there are states that they call a non-recourse states, like Arizona, like California. And the non-recourse states are states where if you walked away from your primary residence, the mortgage company can never come after you. They don't get a deficiency against you. Matter of fact, they're barred by law from coming after you and suing you to get that money. Okay, but in California and Arizona and these other non-recourse states, this is the trade-off. In Illinois, we are also a judgment state. You have to go to court and you have to have litigation and have a judge and have an opportunity to respond and all of that, and it takes time. And that time, sometimes in Illinois, I've seen cases go 4 or 5 years for foreclosure before the bank can get their hands on it. Now, they typically go between 7 months and a year and a half, maybe 2 years. That's a typical foreclosure case. But in states that are non-recourse, again, they can't come after you, but it only takes a couple of months for them to take your home. So if you miss a mortgage payment, you miss 2 mortgage payments, and then all they have to do is put a notice in the newspaper, and they can come take your home away from you. So that's kind of the trade-off. If I'm having some financial issues, at least in Illinois, I'm going to have an opportunity to get back on my feet and maybe save my home. Where in California, they won't be able to come after me, but I'm not going to have much of an opportunity to get back on my feet, and I'm going to lose my house. Okay, so if you decide, the strategic default again is someone says, I can pay my mortgage, but I'm underwater and I don't want to pay the mortgage, and so I'm going to try to just walk away and then let the mortgage company handle it. And people always say, I'm going to give it back to the mortgage company, and I always, this kind of irks me as an attorney because you can't give it back to them because the mortgage company never had it to begin with. They never owned your home. Okay, that's not how it works here in Illinois. In Illinois, you own your home and they have a lien on it. Now, some states, okay, go ahead.
You're just renting the property from the state.
Well, we talk a lot about property taxes, and it's kind of true that in our area around here, we just rent our property from the county, and they charge a very high rent. Okay, but you know, but what I'm talking about is a mortgage company. They don't own your home. They just have a lien against it. Okay, so what happens if I just decide not to pay my mortgage, and then in order for the mortgage company to take it, they have to go to the foreclosure. But do they really have to? There's ways to avoid a foreclosure, and one of them is what they call a short sale. And a short sale is when the mortgage company agrees to take less for the home than you owe them. So in my example, I could sell it for $150,000. Right today, I have someone that wants to buy it for $150,000, but I owe you $200,000, so I can't sell it to you, right? But the mortgage company says, you know what? Give us the $150,000. We'll let that sale go. Now, sometimes they can come after you for that $50,000 still. They still might be, or they might ask you for a promissory note or something like that. But oftentimes they'll waive the difference, and they'll say, okay, you sell it to us, we'll waive the $50,000 deficiency, and you get to walk away. The thing is that when they're doing that, they're going to ask you for information, financial information. Okay, so if I give them my pay stubs and my bank statements, and I reveal to them that I don't really have a means to pay them, well, there's a very good chance they'll waive that deficiency against me, because I could just file bankruptcy and walk away anyway, and in this way they're going to save money. But what if I give them all this information and I'm making $200,000 and some a year, and I have a lot of money and I have a lot of assets? Well, the bank is going to say, I'm not letting you walk away from that. You're going to have to pay it. That's what the agreement is. You're going to pay. And in Illinois, again, as a recourse state, I can sue you and make you pay for that property, okay, and get a judgment against you, and then start collecting on that judgment. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second, there's another one, and it's called a deed in lieu of foreclosure. And a deed in lieu of foreclosure is when I approach the bank and I say, if they sue me through foreclosure, what happens at the end, there's a sale, as I mentioned, there's an auction. Oftentimes in Illinois, who buys that property at auction is the mortgage company. So, but they don't have to. Other people could bid on the property and take the property. So it's not always the mortgage company, but oftentimes it is. Most often it is. So you could say, you know what? Instead of going through foreclosure and paying all of this money, let me just give you the deed, and that's called the deed in lieu of foreclosure. And oftentimes, before they'll agree to a deed in lieu of foreclosure, they'll want you to try to put the market up on the sale and do a short sale before the deed in lieu of foreclosure, because they don't want the property, because then they have to turn around and try to sell it. They don't want to try to sell it. Okay? They want the money. That's what they're after. Mm-hmm. Okay? But now, after that, then you really go into foreclosure problems. Okay, so then they have to foreclose. There's ways within the foreclosure case to avoid a deficiency against you. One is a consent foreclosure, where they agree, you know what, we're just going to foreclose. So say I have two mortgages. I have a first mortgage and a second mortgage. My first mortgage is suing me. They can't do a deed in lieu of foreclosure because that second mortgage still has a lien on the property. So in order to get rid of that lien, they have to do a foreclosure. I can consent and say, yeah, go ahead. I'm going to agree. And that way I can get rid of the second mortgage lien, and this first mortgage company will take it. I know it gets complicated, but that's how it works.
Yeah.
It's hard to, confusing. It does get confusing, but that's what the consent foreclosure. You can also do what they call the shortened redemption period, and that's when they agree to take the property in a faster way than the law allows. And by law, they can't come after me for a deficiency judgment. And then, or you could do what they call a deed in rem judgment, and that just goes against the property rather than against me personally. So they just take the property.
The one big point.
But here's the point. Here's the big point. Okay, if you never do a strategic default, never walk down that road unless you're willing to do the sixth one, and that's bankruptcy, because that's the only thing that you have control of. Everything else is up to the mortgage company. If they're going to do a deed in lieu, if they're going to do a short sale, if they're going to do a consent for, that's all up to them. Okay, the only thing you can control is bankruptcy. And if you're making a lot of money, you're never going to be able to file bankruptcy and get away with it. So never walk down that road. And that's what I was telling this guy. Don't walk down that road. You're better off to pay the difference, sell the property at less than you owe, take the money and pay them, rather than go through all this. Anyway, it gets complicated, I get it, but I wanted to breach these 6 things that you can do to avoid a deficiency.
And the way I can find that, too, is through ChicagoTaxTeam.com. It's going to be your hub to fight the IRS. You can get that kind of information on that website at any time, ChicagoTaxTeam.com. Also, to give Open Tax Resolution a call, 312-664-6649. And I usually say go to ChicagoTaxTeam.com, but this time go to Watch Talk Radio as well, ladies and gentlemen, WatchTalkRadio.com. Now, listen to our sponsors and come right back because they pay good money, and listen to them because they're awesome on AM 560.
The answer.